Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rorry Daniels, Managing Director of the Asia Society Policy Institute. And on behalf of the Asia Society, I'm delighted to welcome you here this evening for a very special program with the Honorable Cho Hyun, the 42nd Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. Asia Society is a global organization dedicated to navigating shared futures for Asia and the world across policy, arts and culture, education, sustainability, business, and technology. As part of that mission, each year, we convene conversations on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly with key global leaders and officials to hear more about their interests, priorities, and plans for a peaceful and prosperous Asia and the world. I'm especially pleased to acknowledge our trustees and honored guests who are here with us tonight. Tonight's a very special opportunity to hear from Minister Cho at a time when Korea is the epicenter of so many emerging and evolving dynamics at home and abroad. The Republic of Korea has recently been through its own democratic transition that saw the rule of law exercised to impeach and remove a president from office and elect a new government, all within about 6 months. At the same time, the ROK is facing many challenges. There's growing military and technical cooperation between North Korea and Russia, a tense U.S.-China relationship, and a U.S. administration that is expecting a lot more from its partners and its alliances across security, economic, and political domains, including demands for steeper burden sharing and new trade negotiations. But still, amid all of these challenges, Korea has significant potential to find opportunities. It is absolutely still a leading producer of pop culture phenomenon. The latest, of course, with K-pop Demon Hunters, which is introducing K-pop and elements of Korea culture and philosophy to a whole new generation, including my own daughter, who will be proudly dressing as Rumi for Halloween next month. But more concretely, Korea is a key player in the technologies of our future, semiconductors, batteries, and it has significant capacity in shipbuilding, a key U.S. priority. And simultaneously, Korea is advancing its clean energy transition as well as taking a leading role in global governance conversations on managing the risks of artificial intelligence. Korea's presidency of the United Nations Security Council this month and its hosting of the APEC leaders meeting in November show that the ROK is not just a global player, but a global leader, an agenda setter, and a convener. Tonight's conversation is an opportunity to hear directly from Minister Cho on how Korea intends to seize these opportunities and manage challenges, and his career and background is rich with experience to enhance our understanding. Minister Cho has 4 decades of experience in the Foreign Service. In addition to his current post, Minister Cho has held a number of distinguished positions, including as Korea's permanent representative to the United Nations, and prior to that post as Vice Foreign Minister. He was also ambassador to India and has written a book about that experience, which I commend to you. And in addition to a number of other postings, he somehow also found time to complete a PhD in international politics. So he's a scholar and a professor, in addition to being a pragmatic and thoughtful diplomat. I've gotten to know Minister Cho over the past year as he was with ASPE as an honorary fellow. And I want to personally thank you for sharing your time, your wisdom, your insights to inform our work. Minister Cho, I also know that Asia Society's current president and CEO, Dr. Kyung-Hwa Kong, would have loved to be here in my position tonight, introducing her longtime colleague and leading this discussion. And we are, devastated that she's leaving us to become the next ambassador of the Republic of Korea to the United States, and has already left for Seoul. But of course, we understand how vital her skills and experience will be for you as you work through the immediate issues in the relationship and seek to strengthen the alliance. We do seem to be developing a habit here at Asia Society for having presidents go on to ambassadorial positions in Washington, but I think it's because we hire people who want to roll up their sleeves and get things done. And of course, we'll be closely watching and rooting for Dr. Kong's continued success in her new position. In just a moment, I'm going to invite Minister Cho to come to the stage for his opening remarks, after which he and I will have a short discussion, and then we'll open to questions from the audience. Please take a moment of silence for your cell phone to turn it off so that you can give your full attention to the stage. Thank you. And please join me in welcoming Minister Cho for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Rorry, for your kind words, kind introduction, but also a very good introduction of Korea today. Well, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is a great pleasure to join you at the Asia Society, a venerable think tank here in New York. I also know that President Kang Kyung-hwa, as said by Rorry, has been playing a significant role in this Asia Society since sometime April last year. Yeah. So I feel sorry for bringing her back to Washington, D.C. But I must admit that I was inspired by Kevin Rudd, her predecessor. Well, you tell me, but I must admit that I'm guilty as charged. Since its founding in 1956, the Asia Society has played an indispensable role in promoting culture, arts, and policies of Asian countries under the slogan of navigating shared futures for Asia, and in a platform for meet the wider world to exchange ideas. I have long felt a personal connection to the Asia Society. When I served as Korean ambassador to the United Nations until 3 years ago, I used to pass by walk, this building on my daily commute, and felt a warm sense of familiarity. I also recall hosting then President Kevin Rudd, as well as his predecessor, Ms. Shuran, to my residence for dinner conversations on global affairs. More recently, I engaged here as an honorary fellow from last year until this June, exchanging views with scholars and opinions leaders of the Asia Society. It is therefore a real pleasure to return now as Foreign Minister and continue this special relationship. Distinguished guests, September is one of the most beautiful months in New York. The mornings and evenings bring a refreshing breeze, while the midday sunlight plays gently across the tall buildings. It is also the month when heads of states and governments gather here in Manhattan to debate the course that humanity should take. For Korea, September 2025 will be remembered as a historic milestone. For the first time, we assumed the chair of the UN Security Council during the UN General Assembly High-Level Week. From this position, we guided discussions on conflicts, global security, and emerging challenges that affects us all. It was a testament to our readiness to shoulder greater responsibility for peace and security in the international community. This milestone was not achieved in isolation. The UN forces defending Korea through the Uniting for Peace resolution in 1950, the UN agency's support for our reconstruction after the war, and Korea's flourishing thereafter were all made possible thanks to the close collaboration with the United States. I saw this partnership firsthand when I served as ambassador to the UN during President Trump's first term, working closely with Ambassador Kelly Craft. More recently, I worked with Secretary Rubio in preparing for the successful first summit meeting of our new administrations, as well as Korea's historic Security Council presidency. Though it has been 2 months since I came into the office of Foreign Minister, based on my 40 years of experience in public service, I can say with conviction that today's Korea-US alliance is stronger than ever. The chemistry between our two presidents at the White House was unmistakable. It was evident both at the press conference and in their luncheon. What we saw was genuine trust and personal rapport at the highest level. Building on this consensus, our two governments agreed to elevate our alliance into a future-oriented, comprehensive strategic alliance. Our alliance has long been rooted in traditional pillars of security and economics, grounded in the Mutual Defense Treaty and the enduring presence of U.S. forces in Korea, as well as the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, which is one of the most comprehensive in the world. Today, this alliance is expanding further, reaching into new frontiers of advanced science and technology, shipbuilding, AI, semiconductors, and nuclear energy. President Lee Jae-myung visited the Philly shipyard last month, and it was a symbolic moment in this regard. It showed how our cooperation is advancing to a strategic level that integrates cutting-edge technology, investment, and security. Of course, even close partners and allies face challenges. The recent Georgia incident involving Korean workers was deeply unsettling to the Korean people. Skilled professionals had come to America with pride, ready to contribute to its industries. Yet the sight of them in handcuffs and chains shocked everyone in Korea. Fortunately, close consultations and President Trump's personal intervention ensured their safe return. Our governments are now discussing a range of measures for Korean workers to enter the U.S. and carry out their activities without interruption. President Trump also took to social media, urging foreign companies investing in the U.S. to bring their skilled workers with them. These will enable Korean companies to accelerate construction of production facilities in the U.S., creating more jobs and greater income for local communities. There is a Korean proverb saying that after the rain, the ground hardens. This is a silver lining for us. I believe this difficult episode will ultimately reinforce the foundation of our cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, among the new frontiers of the Korea-US alliance, I would like to highlight two areas of particular promise. First, nuclear energy. I served as Korea's chief negotiator during the negotiation for revision of the 123 agreement between 2009 till 2011. That experience taught me how important it is for our two countries to reinforce our nuclear energy partnership. Korea has world-class expertise in nuclear power plant construction. The U.S. is a leader in technological innovation. Together, we can generate powerful synergies. This cooperation can take many forms. We can enter third country markets to build nuclear power plants or jointly develop and export small modular reactors, SMRs. Second, artificial intelligence. AI is rapidly reshaping the world order. The U.S. is determined to secure leadership as AI powerhouse. Korea, too, has made AI a national priority, aiming to be among the world's top three, one of the top threes. We are natural partners in this field. Just yesterday, President Lee Jae-myung chaired a high-level open debate on artificial intelligence and international peace and security in the United Nations Security Council. It was a critical opportunity to reaffirm Korea's commitment to using advanced and trustworthy AI capabilities to enhancing global peace and prosperity. Korea leads in the manufacturing and supply of semiconductors and the infrastructure that supports them, contributing to more stable supply chains. The U.S. leads with technological power, capital, and market influence, enabling it to drive the global AI ecosystem. I therefore look forward to our two countries working together to meet common challenges amid intensifying global rivalry. Distinguished guests, if there is one phrase that captures the path of Korea, the United Nations, and the Korea-U.S. alliance, it is mutual reinforcement. For 8 decades, we have supported one another by maximizing our respective strengths. This path is well aligned with Asia Society's vision of pioneering a shared future for humanity by harmonizing the strengths of Asia and the world. We'll continue to strengthen the ironclad alliance with the United States in areas of security, economy, and advanced technology. The alliance will serve as a pillar for our mutual alignment with the United Nations and broader solidarity with the world. In doing so, we will ensure that our cooperation remains mutually reinforcing, relevant, and responsive to the defining challenges of our time. In this spirit, today's dialogue at the Asia Society is both timely and essential. I look forward to candid discussions with you, with all of you, therefore. Thank you. Over there.
Well, Minister Cho, thank you for those opening remarks. You've given us some food for thought for this discussion. I want to start with the immediate issues of the day. We're here on the sidelines of the 80th United Nations General Assembly, and as you say, South Korea is chairing the Security Council this month and has been a non-permanent member of the Security Council for the years 2024 and 2025. So I'd love to hear how you saw the meetings this week unfolding in terms of South Korea's priorities for its UN Security Council presidency, but also if we can draw from your experience as permanent representative here in New York, What do you think the UN can do to maintain its global relevance at a time when some of the major powers that have traditionally invested in it, including the United States, seem to be questioning its value?
It's a dilemma for all of us because the United Nations has been somewhat dysfunctional right after the war in Ukraine in February 2022. There have been much talks about how we can recover the relevance of the United Nations, but in vain. So since Korea has assumed the chairship of the President of the Security Council, we try to discuss how we can how we can achieve the reform of the United Nations. Personally, I believe we can achieve it only incrementally. Though we are not satisfied with the way UN is run, but we have to be patient. Through consensus, only through consensus we'll be able to achieve the objective of reforming the United Nations and recovering the status of relevance as the single global body in the world.
Right. How do you think, what are some of the issues that are important to Korea in its presidency of the Security Council that you think could serve as perhaps like galvanizing mechanisms to build that type of consensus?
Well, we should pay more attention on how we can achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in time. But we've been distracted by wars. But ending the war is the top priority for the immediate future. But in the long run, it will be more important that we focus on Sustainable Development Goals because it will define the world in next 100 years.
Right, and of course the UN has a long history of both managing these major international conflicts between its member states and working on larger, bigger picture projects for humanity like the Sustainable Development Goals. But of course we're doing this at a time, again, where the major powers don't seem as invested as they once were. I want to turn now to the U.S. ROK alliance. Really appreciate you laying out some areas where the U.S. and Korea can continue to deepen cooperation. You referenced the personal rapport between Presidents Lee and Trump at the White House last month, as well as cooperation on nuclear energy, AI governance, shipbuilding, batteries, etc. I'd love to hear your views at this moment when the alliance seems to have substantial momentum. Korean officials have visited the United States quite a few times over the last couple of months to engage in trade negotiations and to manage some of the acute challenges like the immigration rate on the plant in Georgia. But the momentum has come with these big irritants as well. You have said in other places that you think there's a silver lining to be had here, and I'd love for you to unpack that a little further. How do you see that silver lining developing, maybe perhaps especially after your meetings this week with U.S. and other global officials?
Let me start with the United States. After the end of the Cold War, the U.S. has become the singular global power. And the United States has been very often distracted by the events, war, tensions all around the world. Nevertheless, you've become very rich through innovations in California and also ingenious works in the Wall Street down there. But somehow you've been neglecting maintaining the level of high technologies in manufacturing. In the meantime, Korea has been focusing on manufacturing in key areas. So now is time for the United States and Korea to have this win-win proposition. So when I talked about the silver lining, I meant that there is an enormous challenges from the rest of the world strategically. And by aligning with each other, we can maintain the high level of not just cooperation, but also ally relationship. And I argued that we have had two pillars already. A pillar of security by alliance, treaty alliance, and pillar of economic cooperation through FTA. But we need to uphold a third pillar, which is comprised of many cooperation in technologies, AI, bio, and nuclear, and so on. So it was well proposed at the time of my president's visit to the White House last month, and it was equally well received. So I am happy that we will continue to work on these issues as follow-up to our very successful summit last month.
Great. I mean, I appreciate you situating the U.S. ROK relationship, not just in the bilateral context, which is how we often discuss and analyze it, but also in terms of what the partnership can bring to some of the global and regional challenges. I would love to shift our focus now to Korea's sense of broader regional dynamics in Asia. China is a big part of that story, and I think that some of the challenges that you might be referencing as we think through what the U.S. and Korea can do together have to do with managing the challenge of China's manufacturing prowess and its export-driven economy. But India is also becoming a bigger part of this story in terms of its integration into global technological supply chains, but also increasingly its desire to play and promote a leadership role among the countries of the Global South and in the Indo-Pacific region. So what role do you see for the alliance and maybe the broader network of U.S. allies and partners in Asia to navigate a more multipolar world? How does Korea want to invest in its relationships in the region, and how does it want to interact with the types of institutions that we see developing, like the Quad, continued engagement with ASEAN and other kind of economic groupings, BRICS, CPTPP, et cetera?
Well, whether we like it or not, we are located next to China, and we have to live with China as a neighbor. So I believe we have to engage China, nevertheless, without changing the true identity of us. That is, democracy based on democracy and market economy, upholding the human rights of our people. It was well demonstrated at the time of really unexpected martial law announced by then President Yoon in December 3rd. It took 6 months for us to sort out the problems in Korea. We've been put into a limbo. But our firm anchoring in democracy has saved the country. And in the same context, we cannot change our identity as a country of democracy and market economy. So we will align with the United States to keep our identity as such while engaging with China. As for the economic cooperation, for the past 3 decades, China was our place to invest. While Japan was somewhat hesitant on investing in China, we rather courageously started investing in China at the beginning of its opening in 1992. So we were able to enjoy the prosperous uprising of, not uprising, the rise of China. Now the characteristics of Chinese economy has changed. It's no longer comparative, but is competitive to us.
Right.
So that's one of other reasons why we would like to align with American companies for better technologies as well. So again, with military deterrence and cooperation in economics with the United States and engagement with China up to a certain point, Korea wants to remain relevant in the region.
Right, and I think that you've very succinctly pointed out that a lot of the interests that Korea wants to advance in the U.S.-Korea relationship are about making both countries more competitive in this type of multipolar world. I understand that as someone who's sitting here from the newly elected government of Korea, you understand that domestic politics can be quite volatile. We've referenced several times here the quick turnaround in the government in Korea, and it sometimes creates these unforeseeable policy pivots. In this context, I did want to ask you about Korea-Japan relations. President Lee and Prime Minister Ishiba, they started out with this very strong conviction, it seems, to maintain the improvements in Korea-Japan relations that are and keep a relationship that's very future-oriented while respecting, respecting that the past has been quite complicated. But of course, Prime Minister Ishiba has stepped down, and we're waiting to see the results of the next election to see who will be the next leader. So I wanted to see if you could give us a sense of what are the broader dynamics driving cooperation between Korea and Japan right now, and whether you feel those drivers are durable. I mean, what should we be looking out for in these months, especially leading up to APEC and beyond, that there are signs that this momentum can and will be sustained, no matter how Japan votes in the next election?
You know that we have a troubled history.
Yes.
China was too big to change the course at the time when the Western wave of technology came to ashore. Korea was, at the time, Kingdom of Joseon was absorbed in itself, indulging in ideologies of Neo-Confucianism. We refused foreigners, while Japan quickly adapted to the new situation and became one of them. Imperialistic country. So it was quite a shock to us, and we still have an open wounds. That's the reason why, well, one of the reasons, because unlike other countries after the Second World War, Japan was unable to go through a metamorphosis, denying the future. So the descendants of those who ran the country at the time of the Second World War still governs today. So the troubles continues to exist there, and sometimes it erupts. And there have been suspicions, both in Japan and the United States, that when this government, the government of Democratic Party, President Lee Jae-myung, comes to power, it will go for the traditional anti-Japan policy. Well, it has not been the case. President Lee Jae-myung, on his way to Washington, D.C. last month, paid the first visit to foreign country, none other than Japan. And he opened the pathway, paved for improving the relationship between Japan and Korea. Well, we cannot forget about the history, but let's keep it aside for the time being, because there has been new challenge we have to face geostrategically. So we have to put aside these issues for the time being and cooperate as much as possible. So it was well received. And we got the news that things might be changing in Japan, as you mentioned. But we believe that our initiative to restore the shuttle diplomacy and our initiative to work with Japan have been well received. So even the new government is installed, I don't think there would be something like big challenge in the policies of Japan vis-a-vis Korea. So I'm very positive that it will continue in that way.
Absolutely. Well, we're all glad to hear that. I think a lot of us who have worked on these issues for a long time have long wanted to see this relationship become closer for all of the geostrategic reasons you mentioned. Not least of which is the advancement in North Korea of its nuclear weapons and missiles program, which has been accelerated perhaps by international dynamics of friction between the U.S., China, and Russia. And we now know that Russia and North Korea are advancing their relationship to material cooperation in science and defense. We've seen a pretty incredible image of the leaders of these countries, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un standing side by side in Beijing at a military parade. Where does the administration want to start on confronting these changed dynamics and this situation? And maybe if you could, from your experience, what are the kind of key lessons learned from past cycles of doing negotiations with Pyongyang that these new efforts or any new effort to engage on this issue should take into account?
We can compare the situation North Korea is in to that of 2017, 18, and 19. There were resolutions at the Security Council adopted by consensus on sanctions on North Korea. In this resolution, Russia and China joined. Now things have changed. So North Korea should find some room for its maneuvering. And yet, I am sure that Kim Jong-un is not satisfied with it because it has confinements, limitations. Aligning with Russia, Russia is extending a helping hand to North Korea for soldiers and ammunitions. China has been sending some goods to North Korea, but again, even if China disregards the sanctions of the United Nations, which it supported. Nevertheless, it will be limited. So Kim Jong-un should be thinking about having this United States eventually for becoming a normal state. Well, it looks like Kim Jong-un wants to talk with the United States as a nuclear power state, which is denied by the United States. As for us, I'm in South Korea, we still think it is worth trying. I mean, trying the dialogue. For the past 3 years, there have been some reckless provocations by my own government. I am a bit ashamed of what had happened. So for the time being, it is very urgent and important for us to restore the confidence between the South and North, reduce the military tension, and eventually we come to a dialogue table for more important things like denuclearization. In doing so, we know our limitation after 3 years of confrontation. So President Lee Jae-myung asked President Trump to take the driver's seat, saying him that he should be the peacemaker while he relegated himself as a pacemaker. So we do not worry about U.S. North Korea dialogues. We rather encourage it. We rather expect it be happening sooner rather than later. And in doing so, my government is determined to play its due role. Is it possible at this moment? Has there been any response from North Korea? Not much, not yet. But maybe with the leadership of President Trump, it might be happening in the future, in the near future, I hope.
Well, it is true that North Korea does tend to want to come to the negotiating table when they feel like they are in a position of power and leverage, and perhaps, you know, as dark as some of these relationships seem to people who want to be mindful of making sure that there's attention on denuclearization, perhaps it also creates some openings for North Korea to feel confident enough to come back to the negotiating table. I want to turn to audience for questions in just a second here, so please get those ready, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask a little bit about the APEC 2025 summit at the end of October, which is focusing on many of the shared challenges that we've been discussing, but also embracing digital innovation and prioritizing inclusive growth, all subjects we like to cover here at the Policy Institute. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you feel preparations are going and what Korea expects as some major outcomes of the APEC summit.
Again, we've lost precious period for preparing the APEC summit for the past 6 months because of the turmoil in Korea, domestic turmoil, politics, and so on. And yet, we've been pitching, and I think we are almost there. We are well prepared for hosting the summit at the end of October and early November. And it would be great that we discuss these two important issues at the summit meeting. But again, more importantly, it would be great we see the real politics happening at the time of APEC summit, such as President Trump meets with President Xi, and of course, the host, our President Lee Jae-myung. So you can expect much to happen in Gyeongju, Korea.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to unpacking that, and we do have a program planned on November 6th to do just that with some of the officials who are traveling to Gyeongju for the summit. I'd like to turn to the audience. Please raise your hand if you have a question. We'll take 2 or 3, and then we'll turn to the minister. So 1, 2, 3. We have a mic coming to you, so please wait for that. Betty, right here. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for taking my questions. My name is Seung Ray. I'm a reporter from YTN 24 News Channel of South Korea. I have 2 questions. First, North Korea is sending Foreign Minister Kim Sung-kyung to the UN General Assembly for the first time in 7 years. Do you expect this lead to renewed dialogue between North Korea and the U.S. or between the 2 Koreas? Do you have a plan to facilitate it during APEC summit? That is the first question. And the second question, you mentioned cooperation in nuclear energy between the U.S. and South Korea. Has there been any progress in discussions with the United States on revising the U.S. ROK nuclear agreement? Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next question right here in the aisle, Betty. Thank you. Right back there. Yeah, the gentleman with his hand raised. Thank you.
You've expressed the desire of South Korea to find creative ways to recommence communication with North Korea. One of the areas I believe that North Korea is looking for change in South Korea is the reduction of U.S. military forces in South Korea. To what extent are there any strong voices within South Korea that advocate the reduction of U.S. military presence in South Korea?
Okay, one more question. It was over here. Yes, thank you, sir.
Hello, Minister. Thank you for coming. My name is David. I'm a former student of international relations at Georgetown University. My question is, do you think, has there been a more challenging time for the ROK-US alliance ever since 1992? You mentioned there's 2 historically big pillars of the alliance, economics and security, and now we're trying to make a 3rd one with AI. But it's been 8 months under this current Trump administration, and there's concern that regarding the economic front, this new trade deal is a modern-day unequal treaty. Regarding the security front, the U.S. forces in Korea want to be, Trump is wanting to strategically use them for the broader Asia-Pacific theater. And then finally, with the recent Georgia ICE raid as well, it seems that even with technology, Trump wants more skilled workers to benefit the U.S. So my question is, in your career, do you think, has there been a more challenging time? Thank you.
Okay, we've given you just some easy questions here. So DPRK, Vice Foreign Minister to the UN, what's the status of updating our nuclear energy treaty? Is there a momentum in South Korea for the reduction of U.S. military forces? And can you think of a time more challenging than today for the U.S. ROK relationship? Please take those in any order.
Well, I will start with the 3rd question. I was in Washington, D.C. as an economic officer at the Korean embassy back in 1996 and 7 and 9. Korea was teetering on the verge of the sovereign default. This was unprecedented and most challenging time. And yet, I can witness that we were able to sort out the problem, and as advised by our friends in the US government, Korea was able to change the characteristics of its economy, its enterprises. that we were able to have a jump start of the economy, and we were better prepared for the next crisis in 2008. So there has been no peaceful time. I mean, ups and downs in the ally relationship. Whenever we face another daunting challenge, we overcome it and we become stronger than before. So I don't know whether I can think about any more difficult times, but all of these questions, challenges, you talk about trade deal and Georgia case. But again, as far as Georgia case is concerned, it has become a silver lining. We have requested to the U.S. government for establishing a special visa groups for us at the time of the free trade agreement negotiations in early 2000. But now it has become an open question, and President Trump made it clear that the U.S. government will work on it. So again, as I said earlier, when there is a challenge like this, we overcome it and we become stronger allies. I am sure that we will do the same with the financial package and trade deal, and also with the request of the changing characteristics of the U.S. forces in Korea. Of course, we have our basic positions, principles, but in response to the changing international challenges, we will come back, we will come out with a better solution. That's my answer for the third question. And well, there have been some talks about the need for reduction of military drill in Korea, joint military drill, to induce North Korea's participation in dialogue. Far less, there have been almost none. The Korean people are convinced that we need the presence of the U.S. forces in Korea as of today. And I have met a number of senators, and they have assured me that there won't be any reduction of U.S. forces in Korea. It was very assuring because the same answer came from the U.S. government as well, I mean administration as well. So I am not concerned about it. I am equally convinced that the U.S. Extended deterrence is very firm, and based on this deterrence altogether, nuclear and conventional, we can work together on both defense and new technology and economic cooperation. My answer to the reporter from YTN, I think we could have exchanged our views on these issues. We could when we return to Korea. But I will answer to your question in front of the American audience. Well, we won't preclude a possibility of doing a role of engaging the United States and North Korea at the time of the APEC summit, but nothing concrete yet. But again, we won't preclude the possibility. And the U.S. Korea Nuclear Energy Cooperation, yes, we concluded the civil nuclear energy cooperation in 2015. And as we need the reform, I mean, as we need the betterment of the agreement, we are going to embark on new negotiations on this issue so that Korea can address the problems of having too many spent fuels, which are put in water. But this has nothing to do with nuclear bombs, nuclear weapons. We have no intention to go for our own nuclear weapons. Why? Because we are assured of the extended deterrence. And we know the consequences of going for our own nuclear weapons. We don't want to be like North Korea. But we want to have the revision of the 123 agreement to the extent that we address the problems for environmental dimension and industrial dimension. It's absurd for Korea having 26 nuclear reactors, still depending on fuels from other countries, including Russia. And there have been piles of spent fuels in water. It's an environmental problem, and we need to address them and take advantage of it. So for these reasons, we will address these problems, and hopefully we will conclude the negotiations in the near future so that we can sort out these problems.
Thank you for that. I think that your remarks tonight have been quite reassuring, honestly, that there is a lot to do practically between the U.S. and Korea to solve immediate problems and to prepare for the future. You've said many times in many different ways that the pressure that Korea is under, the pressure the alliance is under right now, can build great resilience. And we look forward to seeing your success in these endeavors, those agreements negotiated successfully, and to and to sharing our views with you as we can on how to improve the alliance and to see Korea's great success in the alliance and in the world. So please join me in thanking Minister Cho for his time tonight.